Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't, I'm EDJ, and so last time we covered, the Battle of Cannae, all three parts. Well, yeah, these videos are coming out once a week, so point is, I watched all of them at once, and so now we're watching the Battle of Silva Litana? So yeah, overall, I have to say, with the Cannae videos, they were exceptional. They were, brilliantly done by HistoryMarche, and I just really loved it. It's amazing how you go into, this series. I kind of knew what was going on, at least in regards to Cannae. I think everyone knows how Cannae went, but it's, amazing that could still create any bit of suspense from something you already know, So I don't know, just overall, I've really loved this series, and we're kind of getting near the end, so I'm really gonna try to enjoy and savor these last few, videos. So yeah, let's find out. The fact that Rome rebounds is insane to me, for after Cannae, but it's just Rome. So yeah, if you want to watch the original video, it's in the description down below. With that said, let's watch this battle, shall we?
On August...
Why is the quality, every time it's weird, every time I open a new HistoryMarche video, the quality always starts out at the lowest. But literally any other video I open that's not HistoryMarche related always starts at the highest? That is weird. I don't know why that happens. I'm sorry.
2nd, 216 BC, Hannibal won his greatest victory near the town of Cannae in southern Italy. By day's end, his outnumbered mercenaries had destroyed the majority of the largest army Rome had ever put to field, marking this as one of the bloodiest military encounters ever fought. For the Romans, Cannae became the benchmark by which subsequent defeats were measured. It would not be surpassed for another 600 years.
That's insane. Oh man, that's just insane to me, dude. But I'm telling you, Hannibal, achieved something so great that day. His brilliance in terms of tactics, really hard to reach. That one day, Hannibal was, unstoppable, the peak of his career. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what other encounters he has after that, because that's just insane.
The dazed survivors of the Roman army dispersed. Varro resurfaced in Venusia, in charge of as little as 70 horsemen who escaped the pursuing Numidians. In Canusium, a certain 19-year-old tribune by the name of Publius Scipio, together with 3 other tribunes, gathered a larger group of some 3,000 men.
Dude, yeah, Scipio Africanus, the future man who finally defeats and ends Hannibal's reign of terror. At least from the Roman perspective, Was he there at Cannae? He was there when Hannibal landed in Italy. And assuming he was there throughout the other following battles, talk about luck, right? To encounter Hannibal that many times and to survive? That's insane to me that he saw that, but I also think that helped him, right? He learned from Hannibal after facing him, seeing the man and his army and his tactics firsthand. I think Scipio certainly adapted and eventually overcame Hannibal, so, it goes to show you, right? The longer you fight someone, and if you're not able to end the conflict permanently, eventually they learn from you. It's kind of like the when we were watching the Napoleon series from Epic History TV. It's you can keep fighting the same dude over and over, and eventually they're just gonna start learning from you and get better. So, yeah.
Despite barely escaping the carnage, the young tribune was notable for inspiring the troops, going as far as threatening to kill those who spoke about fleeing, and forcing the men to take an oath never to betray Rome. In the days that followed, up to 10,000 survivors would converge on Canusium, and Varro would resume command. The question was, what would Hannibal do now? Play as the most powerful hero in the world, and a day after the battle, the Carthaginians were still plundering the two enemy camps, taking 19,300 prisoners. Hannibal saw to the burial of his fallen troops and gave Paulus a proper burial. But the dead Roman soldiers were left to rot in the sun. While more than 50,000 men lay dead or dying in the plain below, the Carthaginian leadership met at a villa in Cannae. Visibly exhausted, they were in disagreement. Hannibal and some of his officers wanted to rest the army and prepare for the campaign in southern Italy. Maharbal, a prominent cavalry commander, was among those who wanted to march on Rome without delay. Proclaiming, perhaps enthusiastically, that he would lead the Numidians to the capital in 5 days, he protested to Hannibal, "Truly the gods do not give everything to the same man. You know how to win a victory, Hannibal, but you do not know how to use one."
Wow. That's a little prophetic, ain't it? Because after Cannae, like, obviously, it's mainly due to the Roman stubbornness, right, that the things go, but it's like, yeah, there's like, I've seen people talk about, like, what Hannibal should have done. Some have said maybe go on Rome. Then again, like I said, there's a lot to that. It's not that simple, right? Like, you know, actually having the means of taking Rome, yeah, overall, but that is almost a prophetic statement that, you know, I feel like the fire that was Cannae kind of, like, burnt out. Yeah, it's just a really interesting thing.
Whether or not these words were truly spoken, the reality was that Rome was 400 kilometers away. Another long march, after a grueling campaign had just ended, would be disastrous. Furthermore, the Senate adopted emergency measures to raise 4 legions in the coming weeks. Criminals, slaves, and boys as young as 16 or 17 were conscripted. While insufficient for a pitched battle,
Okay, 17-year-old. Purchase slaves from citizens, criminal and debts, pardon, temples stripped of war trophies to equip recruits, religious rituals held to bolster morale, human sacrifice performed, oh dear. Is that where they buried 2 people alive? I think Historia Civilis covered it in one of his Rome videos. Which is funny because, you know, Romans were like, oh, we're disgusted by those barbarians and their human sacrifices. Meanwhile, they committed human sacrifice. You could even look at the Triumph in a weird way as a human sacrifice, right? When they, like, strangle someone in front of the temple of, like, was it Saturn or Jupiter? Yeah. You gotta love Rome. They're hypocrites. But then again, I feel like anywhere is kind of... You'd see hypocrisy anywhere in history, so I don't know. Alright, public mourning forbidden to contain panic. Gates guarded to prevent people from fleeing Rome. You have to give it to, like, the Romans, man. The fact that they didn't immediately sue for peace, I think is just really telling. They're just trying to bolster up their strength. And man...
these troops would be enough to man the walls of Rome. Praetor Marcus Claudius Marcellus, previously tasked with reinforcing Sicily, was now sent to bolster the confidence of allies in Campania and wait for the wreck of the army of Cannae to join him. If he were to march on Rome, Hannibal would be placing himself between 2 Roman armies and would need to fend off relief forces that the Senate would muster over the coming months. To overcome the enemy's vast manpower, Hannibal had hoped for reinforcements from Iberia, but thus far the Scipio brothers had kept Hasdrubal at bay. Worse, Carthaginian Senate's planning and logistics left much to be desired. Troops in Spain and Italy were mostly paid by the Barcid family Silva. Very little financial support came from Carthage itself thus far. This disjointed system was detrimental to the war effort, and in stark contrast to the better organized Roman Senate that strived to secure funding and logistical support for its army and navy in all theaters.
Yeah, Carthage didn't help, Carthage wasn't that useful, and I joked, like, this isn't really Carthage versus Rome, it's more like Hannibal versus Rome, featuring Carthage. Yeah, a lot of people have kind of talked about Carthage in regards to the Second Punic War, like, they didn't fully back Hannibal, or that they didn't put their best foot forward in completely helping him. And the thing is that the Romans are built for war. To my understanding from Carthage, they were a merchant empire, an economic empire, if you would. Their thing was trade, and, it's really telling, they hired mercenaries, So, meanwhile, Rome, I would call a much more militaristic, warlike society. Like, war is their thing, and I just feel like, Carthage just wasn't, other than Hannibal, like, if Hannibal wasn't there, I think Carthage would have been defeated a long time ago already at this point. Like, it really is just Hannibal carrying, and Hannibal didn't have the... I've heard or read that apparently, like, I think Carthage had an oligarchy, and there are people who have, like, I remember reading, I forgot where, but said that, like, they didn't like the idea of someone getting too much power, so they were kind of, like, a little bit weary of Hannibal and the Barca family, and, that might have contributed to them not being that useful to him, and then again, it's like, I just don't think they're... Compared to the Romans, at least, like, they're not the best at warfare. I don't know about Carthage's other wars with other groups of people, how they fared. Like I said, I don't know much about the history of Carthage. It's just, all I really know about them is from the Punic Wars, and compared to the Romans, they lack a lot. It really is Hannibal carrying, this entire war.
So far, the only attempt to supply Hannibal was a fleet of 70 ships that roamed the waters of northern Italy in the aftermath of the Battle of Trasimene in 217. But lack of coordination prevented them from making contact, and many of these ships had since been captured near the port of Cosa. Confronted by these problems, Hannibal knew that despite his ability to outwit and surprise his opponents, his army would not endure the many corrosive years in the field without reinforcements and logistical support. The decision not to march on Rome was sound.
Bounced from one doctor to the next. Did they even send...
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, it seems like mainly just if Carthaginians had much more, logistical competence, maybe Hannibal could do much. But then again, I've heard people kind of criticize Hannibal as if, he put himself in a position where he couldn't afford, logistical support from even his home base and whatnot. So, Hannibal in a weird way kind of trapped himself in Italy. So, yeah.
While the situation in southern Italy remained uncertain, another Roman army advanced north to punish the tribes of Cisalpine Gaul for siding with Hannibal. The expedition was launched just days after the main army went on its way to Cannae, as part of the Senate's plan to destroy all enemies in the Italian peninsula in one massive counterattack. Commanded by Lucius Postumius Albinus, the Romans marched through the Silva Litana forest, some 120 kilometers northwest of Ariminum. Albinus was a Roman politician and a veteran general. By now a man in his late 50s, he spent the last 10 years in retirement, but was recalled into service during this time of crisis. He was given 2 legions and had recruited allied troops, mustering a 25,000-strong army.
I'm telling you, man, the Roman manpower is insane. Just the fact that it can just spawn out these armies after taking so much losses. It's insane. It's like literally fighting a hydra. You cut off one head and then 2 more grow back in its place. It's interesting seeing this because like late Rome, the late the late Empire, and from then on, they couldn't even field that many men. Like they needed to rely more on like other, you know, like mercenaries and all that. But it's like it's so weird, like how early Rome could just keep producing more manpower at a moment's notice. It's like, oh my gosh, where do you keep getting these people from? Where do you keep getting them? Like Hannibal is probably like, I keep killing them, but they keep coming. Like there's no end to it, you know?
With reports of enemy presence further north, Albinus expected to confront the tribesmen in the Po Valley. But the main Boii force was much closer. They secured the perimeter along the enemy's line of march. The Gauls had cut into the trees in such a way that they...
Yeah, I noticed that. There's a bunch of like yellow squares. I'm like, is that the enemy? It seems like it is. And they're like in between. I wonder if they could carry, because so far, every time we go away from Hannibal with Carthage and anyone else, they don't seem to be doing well. It really does seem like Hannibal is the only enemy of Rome actually winning at all. So let's see if these guys could actually pull a win without Hannibal. Because if not, I'm like, man, Hannibal, you really you were alone on this one. You really had no one backing you. No one is competent, you know, backing you, sadly.
Would remain standing without assistance, but would topple over if given a slight shove. As the column advanced further along the woodland road, the tribesmen pushed the trees onto the enemy.
That is creative. That is something new we haven't seen. We've covered all kinds of, like, military exploits from so many people on this channel. I've never seen something like this before. That's pretty creative from the Gauls, man. Like, wow.
The trees fell on each other and crashed onto the road from both sides, killing Roman soldiers and horses and destroying equipment. Most of Albinus's men died under the weight of the tree trunks and thick branches. The Boii waiting in the forest moved in on the panicked survivors. Roman resistance was fiercest in the vanguard, but elsewhere the encounter became a one-sided slaughter. Albinus fought to avoid capture, but was killed and decapitated. According to legend, his head was later taken to a Boii sacred temple, where the skin was scraped off and the bare skull was covered with gold. It was used as a cup for drinking by the tribe's high priest.
Wow, that is metal.
A contingent of Roman veterans at the head of the column tried to escape across a river, but were captured by the Boii, who had already taken the bridge over it. Very few Roman prisoners were taken. The Boii also took a vast amount of loot with the Roman goods.
Holy crap. Yo, I almost expected them to lose, I'm not gonna lie. Like I said earlier, I was like, you know, every time we leave Hannibal, every time we cover someone else fighting Rome that isn't Hannibal, they aren't doing well. But this Oh my gosh, Gauls, finally, someone who isn't Hannibal doing well against the Romans. I never thought I would see this, guys. This was, like, orchestrated perfectly, dude. I'm, like, impressed by the Gauls. I'm like, you guys, like, thought this through. Like, this is, like, a great ambush, man. Like, great job, guys. Like, you got them. Man, dude, this is like Rome's darkest hour, right? While Cannai's happening and they're getting wrecked there, here, oh man. Talk about like one of Rome's lowest points, right? I still can't believe they recovered from any of this. Like, I'm still shocked.
Handily concentrated along the forest road. Of the 25,000 Romans, only 10 men survived the battle.
My gosh. That's insane. That's a complete disaster. Wow. Good job, Gauls. You're already the most competent ally Hannibal's had.
Reports of the annihilation in Silva Litana came mere days after the catastrophe at Cannae. A panic hit the city of Rome. The Senate ordered aediles to patrol the streets, open shops, and disperse any sign of defeatism. However, all offensive operations against the Gauls were suspended indefinitely. Varro was now sent to levy new troops for the defense of Picenum and Etruria, where he would remain in command of up to 2 legions and an equal number of allied troops for several years. Across the Mediterranean, in Iberia, the Romans fared better. Hasdrubal Barca managed to reorganize his forces after the defeat at the Ebro in 217. And, after receiving a contingent of 4,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry from Africa, he decided to close the distance against the Scipio brothers. But some of the officers that he punished and imprisoned for cowardice after the Ebro debacle had escaped back to their homes among the Tertessian people. They instigated a revolt and captured the city of Asqua, which held a large Carthaginian depot for grain and other supplies. Reluctantly, Hasdrubal had to move south and abandon plans to advance across the Ebro in 216. All reports suggested that the uprising had the potential for spreading beyond the Tartessi territory. This would destabilize Carthaginian rule in Iberia, damage Hasdrubal's supply lines, and endanger the safety of the rich copper and silver mines that were vital for the war effort. Hasdrubal met Calbo in battle and made short work of the rebel army, despite their large numbers. Around this time, he received news of the victory at Cannae and was ordered by the Carthaginian Senate to march his army to Italy as soon as he could. But he was now too far south, and his army needed rest. Most he could do is reach the Ebro River before the onset of winter, but it was too late to campaign against the Romans. For the older Scipios, this was a window of opportunity they would not miss. Previously, except for a brief expedition south of the Ebro, they largely stayed north of the river, weary of Hasdrubal's generalship and the vast resources he had at his disposal. But, taking advantage of the Carthaginian general's absence, the Scipios negotiated an alliance with some of the Celtiberian tribes. In addition, they enlisted many mercenaries from their ranks and began preparations to push south across the Ebro next spring. Back in southern Italy, a Macedonian delegation was heading towards the Italian coast.
Yeah, Hasdrubal hasn't seemed to fared well against the Scipio brothers. We've seen him, like, the Battle of Ebro, which was a humiliating defeat. That revolt that now has slowed him down. Yeah, he doesn't seem to be doing well. I don't know much what he's made of, but, like, yeah, from what we've seen of these videos, he has not fared well at all. Yeah. Oh, hey, Macedon. Awesome, Greece. Yeah, I had heard that, apparently Macedon, I think they were having a war with Rome, or, had a war with Rome around this event, or a little after the Second Punic War. Either way, yeah, you see you see Greece and Rome having issues. So, yeah.
Upon hearing of Hannibal's victory at Cannae, Philip V of Macedon wanted to propose an alliance with the Carthaginian general. His ambassadors joined Hannibal at his camp. The negotiations would drag on until next summer. And the situation in Italy would change dramatically over the coming months.
So yeah, just overall, another insane video. Great ambush from the Gauls. So far, the only other enemies of Rome to actually get a massive W over Rome. So that, yeah, outside of Hannibal. And, yeah, I guess we'll just see how the situation spirals from then on. So yeah, guys, I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye, everyone.